Hey, Pittie Posse community. In light of the seemingly controversial post that we put up yesterday or the day before, we wanted to take a minute to talk with you, with our Pittie Posse community, and explain a couple of things. First of all, Pittie Posse is not your average rescue. We want to get to the root of the insane number of dogs that are turned over to rescues, to shelters, all over the country every single day. I mean, look up the stats. I'm not going to take your time up with them right now, but look at the stats of how many animals are turned over to shelters every single day and rescues. We are up to between 5 and 10 owner surrender requests a week just from the state of Maine. That's not shelters reaching out or, our rescue partners in the South and Midwest asking us, just from people in Maine who need us to take their dogs. We're working really, really hard to affect human education and responsible dog ownership so that people understand the most effective ways to train and care for their canine family members, resulting in less of the behavior issues that lead to the widespread, neglect, abandonment, owner surrenders, and then various community issues that contribute to breed prejudice. In light of this, we really want to explain our stance on canine training and own up to the mistakes that we made at the start of our rescue, which is now about 2.5 years ago. We really strive here to be transparent to our followers and to our adopters and to our fosters and, to the people who support our rescue and believe in us. And we believe that it's important to own and to kind of cop to where we screwed up, because acknowledging it helps us to be constantly evaluating how we can do better. We're a rescue that really values growth and evolution, how we can do better by our dogs, how we can do better by our adopters, how we can do better by our fosters, and by the people who come to us for help on an ever-increasing basis. When we first started 2.5 years ago, we supported what is called balanced training. If you're wondering what this means, essentially balanced training means that a trainer is using both positive reinforcement and punishment and physical corrections. Those might be using a prong collar, using like a little jerk on the leash, using an e-collar or a shock collar. All of those are physical corrections. In the beginning of Pittie Posse, it's nothing like what you see today. Pittie Posse is a group of people working together now at this point, many, many, many people, and a core group of about 20 people who really show up on a day-to-day basis to lead and guide and support Pittie Posse. In the beginning, it was just a few people, like 3 or 4. We had no trainers working with us. We had very few fosters, and we were frantic when we came across a dog or got a dog into our care that had behavioral issues or that badly needed training to make him or her adoptable. Things that with a little bit of training can be really, really easily fixed, like leash reactivity, terrible leash manners, jumping. If you have an 80-pound dog that's jumping and hurtling themselves through air at people, they don't get adopted. They're really off-putting. We didn't have the resources or the funds for private training for each of our dogs at that point. And we didn't have the amazing trainers that work with us today. And we made huge errors in being opened to balanced training, which again might include a prong or an e-collar used by a trained professional. In the case of needing to adapt or change a dog's behavior quickly to get him a home. We did believe that given a choice between a dog going to a shelter and potentially being put to sleep or being trained for a short period with balanced training, we were doing the right thing. And without force-free trainers or any budget for training, we felt backed into a corner with the dogs that we were taking. So believe me that I say that our position comes from experience. We were not always a 100% force-free rescue. And we learned a lesson, and it was a hard lesson, and it's a lesson that quite honestly keeps me awake some nights. I feel an immense amount of guilt and even some shame and a really hurting heart about the errors that we made because they came at the expense of our dogs, of a few dogs, namely. Science has shown that punishment is no more effective than using reward-based training. Science. So this is not opinion. This is not, someone posted on our thread the other day, you know, well, every trainer is going to have a different opinion from the trainer next to them. That's not true with our trainers. Our trainers all have the same opinions. And force-free trainers all have pretty much the same opinions that are based on science. Science is really important to canine behavior and training methodology because we need to understand how dogs actually learn, right? That makes sense. Science has also shown that dogs experience stress and they display stressful body language while being trained with aversive methods and punishment, which again often include the use of shock collars, prong collars. This stress often leads to the dog reacting by showing aggression, as you've seen in many of the Cesar Millan videos that we put up. One, though, might need to know how to interpret canine body language to see some of those earlier stress signals. This information is either missing from or being ignored by a balanced trainer. A dog that is under distress will not learn properly. We know the same thing about kids. This is why we don't allow corporal punishment in the classrooms anymore, right? Frightened kids don't learn. Frightened dogs don't learn what we want them to learn. What they do learn is that since their stress signals are being ignored, at some point, they will stop giving the signals. Signals such as lip licking, averting their eyes, yawning, even growling, and they will go straight to a bite. Other dogs just shut down completely, and we've seen that, and it's a horrifying sight to see. Dogs that are shut down are often viewed as well-behaved dogs because people don't always know what a shutdown dog looks like. A shutdown dog is a dog that has learned that trying to communicate and being ignored is not working for them. So they just do whatever you tell them to, but they do not display signs of happiness and comfort. They have essentially given up. We've seen many shutdown dogs, and honestly, it's heartbreaking. Another term you might hear this behavior called is learned helplessness, which is the more professional term that our trainers use. We recently shared a link to this, and I'm going to put up a bunch of resources in the comments below for you that reference what I'm talking about. But I also want to give you some really personal examples that we as a rescue organization have experienced. This is not hearsay. This is not from a book. This is not someone telling you that they saw a video somewhere. We have a few examples that have really changed our minds and been the basis for us committing to 100% force-free. And I'm going to give you just one. We had a puppy that came to us from the South. And we didn't realize he was really over the top. He was really over the top. And we hadn't realized at that point the effects of punishment-based training. So he went from foster home to foster home. He went to 2 or 3 foster homes and they were irritated. He couldn't be around young children. He was really mouthy. He was completely over the top behaviorally. So at the time, we were partnered with a balanced trainer who uses shock collars and prong collars as a form of training with the occasional clicker to mark certain behaviors. In other words, don't be fooled by trainers that use clickers and think that they are 100% force-free because they're using a clicker. They often call themselves positive trainers because they use clickers, but the rest of their training, which is how it's called balanced, consists of shocking or force or prong collars or intimidation. In this puppy's assessment, and I say puppy, but he was around a year old, it was noted that his behavior was becoming much, much worse in the board and train environment. And as we saw his behavior get worse and the trainer get frustrated with him, we pulled him because we finally got the chance to work with a force-free trainer that we've been trying to work with for months, and she was so busy. And she volunteered to take him into her home and use only positive methods. This trainer is committed to being force-free. And by the way, this is Mim Coward, who we send almost all of our adopters to. She works with Katie Bernard at Positive Canine Care and Training in Wyndham. They are both They are actual dog whisperers. They are amazing. Mim is committed to being force-free and has the education and the certifications to back up her experience. We're still partnered to her. She continues to help our dogs that need any form of training, from puppy manners to behavioral issues. She took our puppy in and worked with him for months. She did an initial evaluation when he came to her, and it was really bad. We really weren't sure what his future was and what kind of home he was going to be able to find. He was showing major signs of learned helplessness. He also showed major signs of fear with anything that even moved, other dogs, humans, whatever. But Mim saw something in him, despite the aggression, despite his annoying and unacceptable behaviors. And after months of working with him very carefully and methodically in her own home, he was ready to be adopted to someone who would understand his history and his needs. Mim knew of the perfect person to take him. She set up a meet and greet. She worked with this person for weeks on transitioning our puppy from her home to the new adopter's home. And the puppy went from being a dog that didn't trust humans after being mistreated to a dog that could now actually form a bond with humans. We put up pictures of him all the time. He can now accept love and affection. He isn't scared and over his arousal point all the time. He lives this amazing Maine life now with an unbelievable human who loves him to the moon and back. And our trainer, Mim, still goes to visit him. At the end of the day, force and punishment are not only not needed to train a dog and help them to learn, but they come with really horrible side effects that don't teach the dog anything that you actually want them to learn. So why, if positive methods result in a happy and well-behaved dog, why would you want to use any type of force? And this goes back to why we considered and used balance training in the beginning. Because when you think about it, why would you want to shock a dog that overeagerly greets guests that come into your home rather than have them do a sit-stay until you release them to do a calm greeting? Reward-based training will teach your dog that doing the right thing will result in good things happening in their world, whether it's praise or treats or playtime or whatever your dog deems as fun and tasty. One of the other many benefits of positive reinforcement training is that it builds a solid, trusting relationship between you and your dog. It makes them see you as the giver of all things good. It's fun for both you and your dog. It teaches you a common language that you can have together and use to communicate each other's needs to each other. This is a reason why we expect all adopters that adopt from us to do at least a basic training course with their new dog within a month or two of adopting from us. Punishment breaks trust down. It results in an unstable relationship. We put up a post the other day which inspired a lot of support and a fair degree of criticism on Cesar Millan's, dog whisperer show. And that's one of the reasons that we wanted to speak to our community about this now, because we have been there and we have made the mistake and we feel horrible about it and really want to make it a part of our mission. And we have from the beginning to educate people and help them understand how to build solid, trusting relationships with their dogs, not how to dominate them and learn to use force to intimidate them into listening. Milan's techniques are based on outdated, unscientific, cruel and damaging methods, which then are unfortunately copied and used by the public. I can't tell you how many people have told me that they had a problem with their dog until they started alpha rolling him, or they had a problem with their dog until they put an e-collar on him and now can correct them at the click of a button. This leads to masses of mentally and behaviorally damaged dogs, which increases the likelihood of bite reports to those at risk, such as children, the elderly, ill-informed owners. These dogs are often then, after that hasn't worked and the dogs are shocked and frightened and don't warn anymore, and the humans have a lawsuit or a dog that they can't control or a dog that's growling at their children, these dogs are then dumped on rescues and shelters who have to spend thousands sometimes of dollars rehabbing the dog, if that's even an option. And again, for us, it wasn't at the beginning. Many rescues don't have enough resources when they get a dog that's aggressive or acting out or doesn't warn. And it can cost thousands of dollars to rehab a dog so that it gets to the point, like our puppy, where it can safely and happily live with people again. We have another one of those dogs. He was trained as an emotional therapy dog, and they used shock collars to get him to stop reacting to any stimulus. So he saw a dog, he got excited, he got shocked. He saw a person, he went to jump, he got shocked. He was frightened, he reacted or growled, he got shocked. This dog has simply learned to hide all reactions to stimulus, not to growl or react when anything made him feel excited or scared or uncomfortable. He was hurt and threatened when he showed reactions. So guess what we have? We have a dog now that shows no warning signs when he needs space or feels scared. Because of this, we have had to classify him as a single dog only home, and it will take forever for him to get a home. We can also spend a few $1,000s trying to rewire his poor brain again so that he understands that he can be a dog and not get punished. But many rescues, most rescues, don't have the resources or funding to do this type of rehabilitative work with broken dogs. You may remember some of those videos from Cesar Millan, and we put a lot of them up. They're all over YouTube now. The poking, the choking, the triggering, the dominance-based trainer and pack leader mentality. He has done so much damage to dogs all over the world. There are people who still see him as a hero. We had them sounding in on our thread the other day. His methods don't come from an educated background, but that doesn't matter when you have a TV show that has good ratings and dramatic results. It's a vicious cycle. Even purebred dogs that wind up in homes where force and punishment are used are often given up to shelters and rescues, and some of them won't ever recover from this type of training, and will therefore end up getting rehomed multiple times, bouncing from home that can't deal with them to home that can't deal with them to home that can't deal with them. And then in the end, they're often euthanized because getting rehomed over and over again isn't good for any dog. And each time it happens, the dog becomes more emotionally broken. Dogs are sentient beings. They feel and experience emotions. We can all agree on that, right? These dogs also wind up constituting a risk to their communities as they're passed from home to home, confused, frightened, and heartbroken. And eventually there's a breaking point, which we've gotten to with more than a couple dogs that we were called to consult on, where they're so misunderstood that a bite or a dog fight happened, and then they're often killed. Pittie Posse supports only positive reinforcement training for dogs because this is what we see works, and because we see the results of anything other than this. The purpose of this video is that we want to be really transparent about how we started and the mistakes we've made. Balanced training was perhaps the biggest mistake that we made. And also note that we don't condemn dog owners for making the same mistakes that we did. We understand that Milan and others have made punishment-based training with physical force mainstream, but times are changing. We have scientific evidence. We have all these amazing positive trainers who are bending over backwards to educate people. And by the way, there are a whole bunch of amazing Facebook groups for positive training that gives you tips and tools and advice. Ask us if you want some of those recommendations. More and more people are starting to learn the truth based on science, not theory, and are acting on it. Balanced trainers rely on people that feel they have no other option and are already desperate to fix their dog. They make promises, but they don't tell you about the side effects and fallout. They don't want to have to put in all of the work that goes in to a positive force-free training plan. They'd rather slap electronic devices on your dog because it will stop the behavior faster. It will get a result faster. And the cost of this is the dog's life and your relationship with the dog. So if you want to follow a famous trainer that uses and advocates for humane treatment, check out Victoria Stilwell. I'm going to put a whole bunch of resources in the comments if you want more info about shock collars, which, by the way, are banned in other parts of the world because they are found to be inhumane. And we also want to let you know that we are now a proud member of the Pet Professional Guild. This means that we are publicly committed to using only result-based, science-based, force-free training. And you can read more about that, again, in the comments. So I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. One of our goals is to get our land and have our training facility so that we can start bringing this to the people of Maine, and we can start giving them free and low-cost resources for training their dogs in a way that build up their relationships and not tear them down and endanger the dogs and their community and their sanity. So thank you very much. We hope that this is a valuable experience for you. It really has been for us. And We are committed to to continuing to learn from our mistakes and own our mistakes, and hopefully helping other people benefit from our mistakes, because that's fun too. So have a great rest of the day. I'll drop a whole bunch of resources in the comments below. And thank you again for being a part of our community and supporting us and tuning in.